Today I'm going to be talking about obsessive-compulsive disorder, what it is, and just as importantly, what it isn't. Hi everyone. In today's video we're going to be talking about obsessive-compulsive disorder, or OCD, and some of the key characteristics of what defines OCD, and just as importantly, some of the myths and misunderstandings of what OCD is or what it isn't, more specifically. But before I get into that, just a couple of disclaimers to go over. I'm a registered psychologist in the province of British Columbia, Canada, and this video is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as a replacement or substitute for advice from your doctor or mental health professional. Now, with those things out of the way, let's start talking about OCD. Now, OCD at its core is a disorder of anxiety. And usually with OCD, it's associated with a lot of anxiety related to and surrounding two things: obsessions and associated compulsions. So obsessions are intrusive, unwanted thoughts, images, or impulses that keep coming up for a person, even though the person finds these thoughts, images, or impulses to be really distressing, really upsetting, really repugnant, or nonsensical. So these are thoughts that a person recognizes either don't make a lot of sense, or they're thoughts that are really upsetting for the person. But they keep happening over and over and over again, and the person can't stop having them. And so associated with these obsessions is a desire by a person with OCD to try and suppress the thoughts, try not to think about them, or to try and neutralize the thoughts in some way. So there's these two various components to obsessions. There's the thoughts and the images and the impulses themselves, and also the desire to not want to have these thoughts, images, or impulses, and the distress that's associated with them. So with these obsessions, they're not just thoughts that are running through a person's mind, they're associated with a lot of sort of anxiety or discomfort. And these obsessions tend to fall into sort of three categories or three themes of thought. So there's obsessions related to harm, so harm towards myself, harm towards other people. There's obsessions related to blasphemy or blasphemous thoughts, and sexual obsessions. So really common obsessions are things like contamination. I touch a surface and I feel that my hands are contaminated, or there's germs on them. Fears of doubt, so uncertainty and doubt as to whether or not I turned off the stove or locked the front door. Fears or obsessions related to blasphemous thoughts, so thinking badly about God, or cursing God, or having sort of blasphemous thoughts in church. There are obsessions around orderliness or symmetry, and these tend to be associated with those fears related to harm, because there's this sense of, if I don't do things in a certain way, or if things are not in a particular order, or if I don't sort of count things, or don't do things in a certain number of ways or a certain number of times, then something bad will happen. Either something bad will happen to me, or something bad will happen to someone else. So those orderliness and symmetry fears, those tend to be associated with fears associated with harm. There can also be sexual obsessions, so obsessions about my sexuality, so concerns about, am I gay, or obsessions around sort of cheating on my wife or cheating on my partner, and having thoughts about that, and then feeling really badly and feeling really upset about having those thoughts, and then wanting to try and neutralize those thoughts or wondering why I'm having those thoughts. So you have these obsessions around these various themes that really strike at the core of a person. So these are things that really get at things that a person really cares about. So someone who is extremely conscientious and caring about other people, it's not uncommon to see those type of people have fears or obsessions related to harm. You have people who are extremely religious or very spiritual will have obsessions related to blasphemy. Or relationships, they have obsessions about whether or not the relationship is the right one for me. Even though I love my partner and I really care about my partner, I still have these obsessions or thoughts about, well, maybe this isn't the right one. Well, why would I be having those thoughts if this wasn't the right one? Maybe this isn't the right one, and then start to obsess about it. So all of these obsessions are really tied in with a great deal of emotional distress or anxiety. And so that's what I was saying earlier, is at its core, OCD is a disorder of anxiety, because you have these obsessions that bring up this distress and anxiety, and then you feel a need to do something about them. So that's the obsession side of OCD. So what are compulsions? Well, compulsions are repetitive behaviors or mental acts that a person will engage in to try and neutralize or try to eliminate the distress that's caused by the obsession. So if I have an intrusive thought that I left the oven on and that the house is going to burn down, I'm going to feel compelled, and the compulsion would be to go back and check to make sure that the oven was off. Well, then what typically happens with OCD is I check that the oven's off, and then I leave the house again, and then I have doubt, did I really check the oven? And so I have to go back. And so these compulsions are things that a person feels driven to do in order to try and reduce the distress or to reduce the anxiety or the fear that the obsession brings up. Oftentimes these behaviors have to be done in a particular way, in either a just right way or in a particular sort of sequence or series of events, in a way for the person to try and make sure that they've done it, or that they've done it right, or that they've done it in a way to ensure that they'll remember that they've done it. But in turn, that typically doesn't work, and so they have to do it again and again and again. Now, compulsions aren't just behaviors, they can also be mental acts. So it can be things like counting numbers in your head in a particular way to try and neutralize something bad from happening. It can be things like saying prayers repeatedly, or saying prayers a certain number of times, or saying prayers in a way that until they feel just right, or that you've done it right, to try and neutralize the blasphemous thought that you've had. So you have these obsessions, you have these compulsions. With OCD, these mental acts, these behaviors, these thoughts, they tend to take up a lot of time. So it's not OCD to sort of go back and check whether or not I locked my car door once. These obsessions and these compulsions take at least an hour a day. So they're taking up a lot of time, and these are really repetitive behaviors and really intrusive, repetitive thoughts that come up for a person throughout the day and take up a lot of their mental energy and take up a lot of their physical energy as they have to engage in these behaviors or mental acts to try and stop this dialogue and this chatter that's going on in their head. So if you can imagine, you spend over an hour a day doing these things that are extremely distressing or upsetting for you, you can see how distressing and interfering OCD can be in a person's life. And so that's kind of the nature of OCD, and that sort of ties into what I wanted to talk about, OCD, what OCD isn't. Now, somewhere along the line, OCD kind of picked up this sort of quirky, funny sort of persona in media or popular culture. People will say things like, "Oh, you're just being OCD." The Friends character Monica, and everybody talked about her being, having OCD. Monica in Friends did not have OCD. She was organized. She liked being organized. She liked liked having her house clean. But that's not an obsession, right? If you think about what obsessions are, these are intrusive, recurring, unwanted thoughts and distressing thoughts. Monica wasn't distressed by the fact that she wanted to have a clean house. She enjoyed it. That was part of who she was. That's how she defined herself. In OCD, people with OCD don't define themselves by what their intrusive thoughts are. They actually are upset and distressed by the intrusive thoughts. The intrusive thoughts and the obsessions go against how they view themselves. So this isn't something that they want. This isn't something that a person with OCD takes pride in. So it's not that clean, organized, superstitious, have to do things in a certain way because that's the way I like to have it. OCD is much more driven by anxiety and distress. More recently, you have public personas and characters like Khloe Kardashian making fun or making light of OCD. In 2018, she had a series called CloCD. So using her name and branding it with OCD because she wanted to show people how she organizes things and how she keeps her fridge organized and her shoe closet organized. It's this type of thing that is so that's a real big pet peeve for me, because OCD isn't something that is funny or quirky. It's not something that should be used as kind of a cutesy branding for a video series. Because just because Khloe Kardashian enjoys having her closet organized, that's not OCD. And what it does is it trivializes what people are suffering when they're actually experiencing OCD. She may take great pride and she may want to brag about how organized her closet is. That has nothing to do with OCD. So somewhere along the line, OCD has become part of our public vernacular in terms of someone who's organized or clean or likes things done in a certain way. That's not OCD. And if you ever catch yourself saying, "Oh, that's so OCD of you," or "You're just being so OCD," think about what that means. And think about what you're saying. And would you ever say something like, "Oh, that's so Cancer of you," or "Don't have such a heart attack about it"? We tend not to make fun of serious physical illnesses and diseases. We shouldn't be making fun or making light of serious mental health conditions and mental health problems such as OCD. It's not funny, it's not cute, and it's not something that a person with OCD takes great pride in or wants to brag about on their Instagram or a video series. So I hope that gives you a better understanding of some of the the nature and the characteristics of obsessions and compulsions and how they work together in OCD, and what OCD isn't. OCD is a really big topic. I'm going to be doing a lot of videos on different types of OCD, why OCD happens, different models of OCD, and some treatment approaches and tools that a person can use for better managing symptoms of OCD. So I hope you'll keep an eye out for those if you're interested in this topic. If you've been finding my videos helpful, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and you'll be alerted every week when I post a new video. As always, thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one.